Hello, welcome to the Adventure Corner. I'm your host, Robot Spacer. David Alexander, 32-bit kid, Deovor, great to see you all. I hope y'all are doing well. So I was going to do just an art stream today, but I got my first wonderful feedback from Res Mason, who has been testing the game. And there's some interesting bugs they found that I would like to fix. So I figured we'd do that on stream. The first one, I was able to figure out the cause of just by thinking over it a little bit. And it's kind of a funny one. So that'll be interesting. There's another one that I don't know the cause of. I'm a little scared. With any bug, like it's... sometimes, you know, you'll realize right away what the cause is, and it's like, oh, that's an easy fix. I just, made a little mistake. Other times it's like, oh god, I hope this isn't something like there's a category of bugs where you potentially they're more significant, and you might have to change things around in a way that could potentially impact other things, and I hope it's not that type of bug. Hopefully it's just a minor little mistake I made, but we'll find out in a little bit. And then the last one is not really a bug, just something I kind of decided to leave the way it was, but I did have in the back of my head that I would like to address this at some point. I decided to wait and see what feedback I got. But I think I figured out a way to address this issue and make the game a little bit more flexible with one of its hardest puzzles. So we'll look into that and see how it goes. Dave Warren says, great weekend so far. Got back from some awesome nature walking. Saw like 21 or so turtles hanging out on a river log. Oh, that sounds amazing. Category bug where you have to rework a whole system. Yeah. And in World Builder, we're kind of very limited in what we can do. Generally, I think reworking a whole system is not something that's going to be possible. We just have to kind of, if it's a big enough issue, we might have to hack around some things in a weird way and hope it doesn't cause a new problem. 6-7, hello. Stream held over, second encore performance, standing room only. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on this first bug. I went ahead and opened the library entrance code already. So this bug is kind of funny. So what happens here is we have this item that's in the game referred to as a soup bone. It's definitely not a soup bone, but that's what we call it in the game. I think this kind of came out of I don't know. I can't remember the original conversation that led us to labeling something a soup bone, even though it's not really. But you get this item on the library scene, and let me find the code here. Okay, here's the code. Here's the problem right here. If soup bone equals storage then at the start of the game, the soup bone is in storage, which is just kind of a temporary holding place where you can put an item. Also, if you move the player there, they will die. That's actually the intended way to end the game in code. So it's a little bit like a scene that you can't access directly. And it's a pretty normal practice in World Builder to put an item there if it's something you need to find either through searching or by solving a puzzle or whatever. And I'm pretty sure this line of code here is something that is recommended in certain scenarios in the manual. I feel like this is a pretty normal and reasonable way to check if an item has been found yet. And for the most part, it's fine. But then we have a puzzle that uses the soup bone. And when you solve that puzzle, guess where I move the object to? Storage. So if you come back here after solving the puzzle, you can get the soup bone again. So there's two ways we can fix this. We can either add a variable to keep track of whether the player has found the soup bone yet. That'll allow us to check that variable and then ensure that they only get the soup bone one time. Another thing we could potentially do is add like a different hidden storage area. This is something I actually did with the flower pot. You can put items in there, but we didn't want them to appear in the actual scene you can see, so I made kind of a separate holding area to keep track of what's in the flower pot. In this case, I think just using a variable is the way to go. There's just no good reason to add another like special storage area. So that's what we'll do, I think. I'll one day have to rework my dice rolling, but at least the solution is pretty interesting. That's good. A bone made entirely of soup. Exactly. Okay, so let's look at my variables list. I won't be able to show that on stream. That's just on my computer here. And we'll find a good variable number to use. We could use B for bone. I try to pick like variable names again are a letter, a number, and then the pound sign or number sign. So I try to pick a letter that is like somehow related to something. Could be B for bone, or L for library, or S for soup bone. I think we'll go with B. Yeah, we've already used up to S9. But we still got some B numbers left. So let's do B7. And we'll say soup bone found. And just to make myself a reminder what this is used for, set to 1 if the player has found the soup bone. Okay, and this should be pretty easy. We just need to check what that variable is set to. If B7 number sign is less than 1. Again, we're told, I think in the manual, that an unused variable that has never been set is set to kind of an unknown value that is less than 0. So this is kind of the safe way to make sure a variable has never been set before. In my experience, they're usually actually set to 0, but I don't know if that's a reliable thing we can count on. And then after this, we just set it to 1. And that should be it. We do want to look through here and check if we ever do this. Yeah. So here we have, if the soup bone is not in storage. What? let me look at this. Okay. So we have first we check if book drop open is in the scene. So we're checking that the player has opened the book drop already. And if they have, then we do this soup bone check. Another nice thing about checking if soup bone is in storage is like you can read that and understand immediately what we're checking for. Whereas if we come across if B7 is less than 1, it's like, okay, I gotta look up what that number means in my notes in order to understand what this code does. Because again, we can't add comments. And then we have a bunch of different commands that are appropriate if the soup bone has not been found already. And then I'm trying to figure out like what is this the end for? Okay, so this is the whole block if the soup bone is still in storage. And then we have a different block if it is not in storage. Okay, so yeah, in this case, we want to check that variable again and say B7 is less than, or wait, no, is 1. Yes. So if they've already found it, we're going to say it's dark inside, but the book drop appears to be empty. Or you slide your hand into the opening, but the book drop seems to be empty. Okay. Potentially, like... Yeah, I can't even get a good example, but I wanted to make sure this was still the thing we wanted to check for, as opposed to, you know, maybe these were commands that were appropriate if they found the soup bone, but it's still here, or something like that. I think that's everything. But yeah. Another thing, I'm not going to do this on stream, but off stream, I am going to. So I've exported all this code into text files. So now I can easily open BBEdit is my usual text editor. If I'm just doing like any sort of text editing that I don't have, like, you know, for programming that uses Xcode, I will use that. But for like making web pages or just editing a text file or whatever, BBEdit is a really fantastic Mac program. And that can search across files really easily. So I am going to search all the text files I created with the code for the game and review whether I might have created any other similar bugs, because I do think it is a possibility. So I can just search all the code for storage at and look at all the, you know, code I wrote that checks that and make sure that there's not any other concerns. But I think we'll be good with the soup bone. So when we move it to storage after solving the puzzle, that won't affect the B7 variable. So you won't be able to get back to this state unless you restart the game. We will check that, but I think it's fine now. Deborah says, I basically found out that floating point math in Unity and other engines secretly relies on processor implementations of floating point math that aren't always IEEE standard. Oh God, that sounds like a nightmare. So while a seed on a specific machine should always produce the same result, the same seed on different machines could produce different random effects. Oh gosh. Torsten Bronger, hello. What is the difference between 1 equal sign and 2 equal sign in this language? So it depends on the thing you're comparing. If you're comparing numbers, which is what you're doing with a variable can only be a number. I believe there is no double equal sign comparison. Let me check the manual, actually. The manual has a nice little chart of our comparison operators and what they do. So let me make sure I'm giving the correct info. When you're comparing text, it is a particularly important difference. So it's probably be hard to read on camera, but the first row is numeric items, and then strings, and then other items. So if we're comparing numeric items, a single equal sign means they equal. So like we're checking just if the variable equals that number. And then you can see over on the right of this chart, a double equal sign has no meaning with a numeric comparison. With strings, it's quite different. A single equal sign means is a substring of. So you're basically saying, does the player's input, for example, contain this word or phrase? Which is super helpful if you're trying to be flexible with your text parser input. I've made use of that quite a bit. A less than equal sign when you're comparing strings means is not a substring of. which is a little unusual. And then greater than has the same meaning. But two equal signs when you're comparing strings is checking for an exact match. So that means like the player has to have entered exactly that phrase. Although there is some world builder weirdness where that won't necessarily be the case. An undocumented thing I've discovered is that the world builder will take certain words and convert them, like kind of standardize your verb before that text is given to your code. So I can't remember which way it goes, but with take and get, one is converted into the other before the text parser code has a chance to do anything. And there's some other situations that are handled in a similar way. So in that case, you know, if you have code that checks for two equal signs like get bone, if the player types take bone, that code would run, even though they did not exactly enter get bone. And then some more kind of weirdness. If you use two greater than signs with strings, that means does not match exactly. And then with other items, you can use comparisons to check if an item is located in a scene, or if you use greater than or less than, it means the item is not located in the scene. And by number, you mean integer, right? Yes, correct. I'm trying to remember if it's positive integers specifically. I think that's true. As far as what you can set a variable to. Did you know that the 3D engine of Wolfenstein is done entirely with integers? I did not know that. That's very interesting. Okay, so we got that bug taken care of. I'm going to address all these, and then we'll go through and test that we've fixed them. Okay, so the next one I want to deal with, Res Mason said, if holding skull at greenhouse pot, typing put skull in pot incorrectly answers, you don't have it. So this one I was not able to make sense of without looking at the code, and I haven't had a chance to look at the code yet. So let's do that right now and figure out what's going wrong there. My guess is there's just like a typo or something like that. So I think this is the right scene. Okay. So this scene is somewhat unique in that we let the player attempt to put a lot of different things in the flower pot. And we kind of have custom responses for lots of things. So let's see, we start off with, this is code that allows you to exit the close-up. First we have code that allows you to water the pot, which is fine as far as we know. Have some other code that seems to be fine so far. And then we have, okay, so this is the start of our block that handles putting things in the pot. First we check for a verb like drop, add, insert, plant, put, or bury. And then if the player has entered one of those words, we check for a noun. So potato, light bulb, battery, use battery, bone, book, cloth, key, skull. Okay. Okay. I see the problem here. So at one point, when we first added the skull, we decided to name the skull Agent Scully. And initially that was the name of the object. But later I decided that the object should just be labeled skull. And you can find out that the skull's name is Agent Scully in some other way. And at that point, I tried to go around and update all the code where we reference that object so that we wouldn't have any bugs like this one. But obviously, I missed a case. So we'll just change that to skull, which is the current object name. And that's good. In most modern programming languages, you wouldn't refer to an object by, the same string that you are using to describe it to the player, but this is what we have to work with. So I think that's fixed now. Fortunately, that was super easy. We'll obviously want to test that and make sure everything's good now. But I'm going to check that off the list. Also, let me make some notes for myself. To do search code for Agent Scully to make sure we don't have any other bugs like that. I accidentally typed search cod. That's a little bit different. Search code for storage at check for bugs. Okay. And then the last one was not a bug. Like I said, it was something I knew about. I'm trying to think. I've tried not to spoil too many things as we've gotten into these later streams, but this is extremely puzzle related, so I think it's going to be kind of unavoidable. I've already spoiled some other puzzles a little bit, but I'm trying to be as vague as possible. This one is going to be a little more obvious with the spoilers, so just a warning. If you don't want to be have this puzzle spoiled, skip ahead to where I'm starting to sketch again. So we have a inventory item you start with called Rapier Sharp Wit. And you can look at this item and it's basically a certificate. And at one point you need to drop this item. And the way World Builder handles picking up and dropping items, you have to type the item name exactly. So in this case, that means you have to type drop Rapier Sharp Wit exactly. And if you look in your inventory, you can see that name to find out exactly what it is. But because this is a very weird and not obvious puzzle, I decided to try to be a little more flexible. And in one specific scene, you can type drop wit or drop certificate, and the game will understand what you mean. And I had kind of planned to do that in a different adjacent scene as well, but I decided to just kind of wait for feedback on this puzzle. Just in case I wanted to rework things a little more significantly or in a different way that wasn't necessarily obvious. I just figured I'd wait and see what people thought of it. But I've decided now that we should definitely be more flexible. So there's two things we could do here. We could add the ability to use that shorter name just in the nearby areas where the player is most likely to try it. Or ideally, we could be consistent and add something in the global code that will work everywhere. I was initially thinking that wouldn't be possible, especially without potentially introducing new bugs, but I think we can do it, so I'm going to give it a shot, and we'll see how it works out. If it turns out I've introduced a new bug, we can always change it later. Deborah said, no, that's silly. Surely 0 is included. Yes, I should say non-negative integers. Okay. So another tricky thing with the global code is that I think we're going to run into this immediately. Let's find out. First, I'm going to speed it up because this is a lot of code and it'll take a long time to load at normal computer speed. So in World Builder, we have allegedly a limit of 10,000 characters per window of code. Kind of interestingly, that seems to... let's actually close this. And then, like, one of my biggest code scenes is Little Sweetie Emails, I think. But if we go in here, it says our code accounts for 3,416 bytes on disk, which is like less than half the number of characters, which is interesting to me. I don't fully understand what's going on there, but like I think it must be storing code in, like, I don't know exactly, but it's, you know, it's clearly storing code not as characters. It's like, you know, probably any actual text that is presented to the player is still stored as characters, but I don't know. It's just, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know what the real limits are, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if there's some byte limit, and they just figured that 10,000 characters was approximately equal to that. But it's all very strange. And I don't know what the actual limit is, especially because anytime you hit return in the code editor, it'll format things. So if you're typing if something then, and then hit return to start your next line, it reformats everything as though all the code after that is inside the if statement. But you might be planning to put an end statement shortly after. So basically it's added all this space and reformatted things, and I found that as you approach like over 8,000 characters, you'll hit return and it'll give you an error, whereas if you type the code somewhere else and paste it in, it's not a problem, because, you know, it's able to immediately understand that it doesn't need to indent all this code. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how weird this is. But let's go back in the global code and see if we can type anything. I don't think we can. This reminds me of doing some Game Boy art. There was a maximum allowable number of unique 16 by 16 tiles that made cutscene stuff hard. Oh, interesting. Had to get clever in weird ways. Thank you for the follow. Great to have you here. Oh, you know what I just realized? Well, I'm not going to worry about it. We're in the art category doing coding, but we'll get to the art soon, I promise. This is the last coding thing we have to do, and then just some quick testing, and then we'll get to art. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out what is a good spot to put this code, especially since we don't have comments. I've tried to like kind of organize stuff in a way that like at least put similar things together. So we do have a lot of code here that deals with items in different ways. So I think we'll probably put this after all of that. Okay, I think we're going to put it above this looking at stuff. Or talking, rather. You can talk to this goal. Okay. So that was fine, but let's see how this goes. So we're going to do if text $ contains drop. Let's see. So we're handling dropping the width. Yeah, so we need then. Actually, okay, so it's fine so far. Okay, there we go. The window is full. There is not enough room for more text. Yeah, so you can see now it's gone ahead and indented all this, and I think that is like part of the issue here. I found previously that if I ran into this error and just like typed what I needed to elsewhere and pasted it in, I was able to, you know, enter more code and not get an error. So let's close this. And it's also, it gets really frustrating. Like when you get to that point, it can become hard to like, I think even if you delete stuff, you'll continue to get errors. So it's like kind of all you can do is back out and not save. The official IDE for HT Basic allowed new functions only at the end, so I edited in a good editor and copied bidirectionally. Awful tool design. At least you had functions. We don't even have those here, so. Okay, so another thing I wanted to do was to look at the code I already wrote for handling this in a specific scene. We still need to have the code in that specific scene in the brisket close-up because that is a little different. In that case, you can drop the item and it actually gets dropped in the study here because we don't want to drop anything in a close-up because it'll look weird. You know, we want the item to appear in the room you're in, not in that close-up. But we do want the code to be similar. So here's a chunk we have here. So first we check for the verb, and then one of the nouns we allow, and then we handle that. So I'm just going to copy that. And I think just to make things easier, I think I'm just going to quit and do the rest of this code in a text editor because I think it's going to keep being weird on me. So we'll open up Teach Text here. Okay. So we need to take this and adapt it to work wherever the player is, which I initially thought would not be possible, but then I remembered, similar to this player at, we have a special variable called scene at, which refers to the scene the player is in. And that gets additionally complicated because in certain scenes, we don't want the player to drop anything. But since this will be in global code, we already have handling of those close-up scenes where we don't want the player to drop things in the scene code. And the scene code always runs first. It goes scene code, then your global code, and then if you don't have an exit, like this one we have here, that happens before getting to the end of the global code, then World Builder has its own built-in code that will handle commands if it gets that far. So that handles stuff like the automatic picking up and dropping of items and stuff like that. So it should be fine if we do move rapier sharp wit to scene at, and then it'll print you no longer have the rapier sharp wit. And let's see. In this case, we don't need a fallback here. And we want this to end because we want to make sure that the default dropping still works if this specific scenario doesn't get triggered. So these both have an end. The only time we're exiting is if all these conditions pass. So if they type drop along with one of our nouns and they have the item, then we will handle it, move it to the scene. I would love it if World Builder lets you enter like synonyms for an item. That'd be a great feature I would enjoy, but we don't have anything like that. So this is kind of the best we can do is handle some things in code. In some cases, I ended up going back and shortening item names, like kind of what I did with the Agent Scully item, just to make it easier on the player. But that's not what we're doing here. Okay. Can you extend the scene class? Absolutely not. That's not even like a concept that World Builder has. Okay, so back in our global code, make sure things are on fast here. Just to clarify, anytime you see this thing appear at the top, I'm basically changing a setting in Mini VMAC, the emulator I'm using here. So in this case, we hit Control, then S, and then we can hit one of these keys on the left here to change the speed. So I'm putting it back on 1x. So at this speed, it's running similar to if we were actually using the Mac Plus I have in the other room. And we'll get back to the part where we decided to add this code, which is here. And then hopefully we can just paste this in. If we can't, there are some things in here we could remove. I would be a little bit sad about it, but okay, we're good. I figured that was probably the case. In particular, if I did have to remove things, there's a bunch of responses from Agent Scully that we could trim down if necessary. Okay, so that's all good now, and I think we're on to testing to make sure this stuff works. Oh, there's also a typo somewhere. Apparently I typed any everything went white, where it's supposed to say and everything went white. Let me think for a minute about where that typo would be. I might have to grab my laptop and search the code to figure out where that is. I'm thinking. Is it still? Yeah, that's still working. If I don't change the emulator speed before opening or closing the window, it seems to speed it up a little bit, but it's not instant like it is if I make sure to do it in advance. It's kind of weird. Everything went white. I feel like this must happen in a scene where you get killed. But I can't think of which one. So I think I'm going to go grab my laptop real quick, and that'll help me find this typo very quickly. So I'm just going to leave it on the scene, and I'll be back in a second. Okay. It's been so nice to just have all the code on here so I can look through. Like, I was able to finally check if I made any typos anywhere by running a spell checker and BBEdit and all kinds of little things like that that have made life much easier. Everything went white. Okay. Oh, okay. That's actually in the conversation with Brisket. Easy fix. Oh, and it finally closed. Okay. And do you remember anything after you hit your head and everything went white? Fixed. And I did check to make sure that specific typo was not repeated anywhere, because occasionally we have the same dialogue in a couple different spots depending on exactly how the player triggered that dialogue. Okay, so next we will run through real quick and do our best to make sure those bugs are fixed as expected. Oh, let's see. I removed all my cheat codes. Those were in the global code. I had a really helpful cheat code to make all the items appear in your current scene. But we don't have that anymore. Turn our volume down a little bit. So we'll have to run through a bunch of the game real quick. But it shouldn't take too long. In fact, let's do 4x so I can go a little faster than normal. So first thing we want to do is... So we need to get the soup bone, the skull, and then talk to Brisket. Okay, that's easy enough. Okay, so we've grabbed the bone. Let's... we're gonna repeat certain actions a bunch to make sure we get the expected responses in places where we change code. So the book drop seems to be empty. Give the bone. And get this key. And let's go ahead and hear. Okay. I was like, oh god, why did the egret sound just happen? We're nowhere near the egret. Thank you for the egret, 6-7. Okay, so let's try berry skull. Okay, you don't have it. That's the expected response. Berry bulb. Hoping for that reaction. So mean. Okay. So now we can get in the house. Oh, actually, let's... Oh, hello, sir. Goodbye, sir. Okay, so let's try to reach in box. Okay, seems to be empty. Great. So the bone is in storage ever since we gave it to the dog, but we're not able to get it back out of storage again. So that's great. Let's also try look in box. It's dark inside, but the book drop appears to be empty. So I'm confident that bug is solved now. Let's see, I'm just unchecking things on my to-do list as I go through and test them here to make sure I check them all. So that one's good. Let's go in the house and talk to Brisket. So here's Agent Scully. We didn't actually need that book, it's just a habit. Okay, well, let's talk to Brisket. Nope. Okay, so we need to... Oh, right. I should have been testing this from the beginning. So let's drop wit here. Yeah, you no longer have the rapier sharp wit, but then we can leave here, and it's already here. This is the code I already had in place for handling that. But now we should also be able to drop it here. Perfect, and it's in the expected scene. We want to try that in a bunch of different places. We can also do drop certificate. I almost got it. Certificate. There we go. Okay. Good, good, good. So I think that's fine. Let's just pick like couple more locations here. Drop wit. Drop certificate. And then in here, you don't want to get your certificate dirty. So here, you know, it's another close-up, but we already have custom handling of dropping any items, so it's never getting to the global code we added, which is exactly what we want. I'm trying to think of another close-up scene that would be good to test with. Specifically one where we don't have, we don't have a custom response for dropping the certificate. Okay, you should step back from the schedule first if you want to drop something. So that's just a generic case where we intercept any code that includes the word drop, because we don't want people to drop things here. So yeah, I think we're good on that one now. So let's go check the last two we have here. Oop. Okay. Talk. Drop wit. Okay, and then I think our typo is... Okay, there's where we first mentioned everything went white. So if we leave and then talk again. Okay, do you remember anything after you hit your head and everything went white? So that typo is fixed now. And we're done testing with brisket. And we just want to check that we get the correct response when we do have the skull and try to bury it in the pot. Bury skull. Oh, we'll do the exact. These should be handled the same, but we'll do the exact command that Rose Mason tried to type here. Put skull in pot. Agent Scully deserves a proper burial. Great. Just to double check, let's drop skull back here, and then put skull in pot. You don't have it. Great. So I think we're all good. And I'm reasonably confident we didn't introduce any new bugs, which is always a relief. Okay, so I think that's all the coding for today. And we're going to move on and do some drawing stuff. I'm just looking at my notes here to make sure there isn't anything else we want to take care of right now. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and do this one while I'm thinking about it. I thought of some... It's actually related to one of the bugs we just addressed. Another thing we want to add to the help here. I'm not sure which screen. So the help is kind of a combination of, like, I tried to create help, like, there's so many potential things to explain about this game. But I tried to create a help document that would explain things that are necessary for someone that has some familiarity with, like, a game that looks like this. So, you know, someone that's played like a text parser game, you know, like ideally if you've played like an old Sierra game or something, you kind of have an idea of how to approach a game that looks like this. But World Builder has some unique things to it that are worth explaining. And then also our game in particular has some unique things that are worth explaining. So a lot of this is just trying to make it clear that the text parsing is pretty simplistic. I almost deleted this. I originally suggested to skip articles like the, but then later on I figured out a nice way to write code so that usually using the doesn't matter. I almost considered deleting that, but I figured we'll just leave it in. In general, like with World Builder, it's a good idea to, you know, use pretty short sentences. I mean, not even sentences really. But like you generally want a verb and then a noun, which is probably one word, but it might be a few words depending on what the noun is referred to in game. So specifically the thing that came up, Puzzle was testing the game and she had some difficulty with, I think dropping or, it was picking up an item. She was trying to pick up the soup bone by typing get bone, I think, which didn't work, which is an understandable confusion. Wherever I have written code to handle commands, I have tried to be flexible with the naming of things. So I'll just make sure that the player has typed bone along with whatever verb they're trying to use. But picking up and dropping of items is all handled by World Builder. Like we just did, it's possible to, write our own code to make that more flexible. But because we're so tight on space in the global code, we cannot do that with everything. I don't think we would be able to, get all the code we need without deleting a bunch of other stuff we have in the game. And we don't want to do that. So we can at least clarify in our help file that you need to try to use, the exact names of items whenever possible. So I'm just thinking of where we want to put that. So we start out with just a kind of rough introduction about the different ways you can interact. Then we talk about, in some cases, you must type a command to progress. Keep your commands short. Skip articles like the. Usually 1 or 2 words is enough. Press the return key after your command. Read the game's responses carefully. Often the text will give a hint about what you can do. Some of the items you pick up can be used or examined. Try typing a verb like use, look, or read, followed by the item name. If you're in a close-up, enter close or back to return to the game. Okay, so here we're talking about picking up items. So I think before that, we should talk about commands you can type to pick up an item. So you can pick up an item by Mel Loves Games. Hello. Thank you so much for coming by. Great to see y'all. Hope you had a good stream. Let's see. I think your go live notification said... Were you still finishing up Oberdin, or was that last week? Regardless, if you need to raid and run, that's totally fine. But if you want to stay in chat, I would love to hear what y'all were playing today. And I hope it was a good time. We're just working on some little updates to World Builder game I've been creating. This is a program from 1986 for the original Macintosh, and we spent the last year creating a game in it. It's pretty much done now. We've been doing some play testing, getting feedback from folks, and then making little adjustments based on that feedback. Oh, you did finish up Oberdin today. Nice. Congrats. Solved all 60 deaths with only a few hints needed. That's fantastic. That is such a good game. I enjoyed it a lot. So right now we're just updating our help text to explain some things a little better. So you can pick up an item. Whoops, typing in the wrong thing. By clicking on it in this scene, or using a command like take soup bone or get soup bone. I feel like the soup bone's a good example. You can also drop items with a command like drop soup bone. When picking up or dropping items, you make sure to use the exact item name. That the game uses. Actually, let's retype that. You can check your inventory, or the scene text to find the item name. Hopefully that's clear enough. I might revise that a little bit later, but for now I think that's good. And then a bunch of this text we'll have to bump onto the second screen here. Love the graphical style. It took a while to get into it, but after a few hours it really started moving along. Definitely some unexpected aspects to the storyline and still some unanswered questions after playing the game. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, it's been a little bit, so I can't remember if I had any particularly unanswered questions. I definitely didn't ever get like a 100% understanding of things, but I think I spent enough time exploring and considering little details that I felt like I had a pretty good idea of what all went down. But yeah, that's it's quite a mystery for sure. And I was also surprised by some things in that game. I always try to be extremely vague whenever I'm talking about it because I definitely wish for other people to have the same experience of surprise if they decide to check it out. Okay, help continued is what we want now. Okay, and fortunately this scene we have lots of room, so yeah, it should be enough space. We'll double check that. I tried to leave 2 lines at the bottom here so that when they get to the scene, nothing scrolls off the top instantly. I am emulating a Mac Plus. I'm using a program called Mini VMac, which is overall my favorite Mac emulator. I think it runs like System 1 up to System Mac OS 8, I think. And you can emulate a number of different Macs, but the Mac Plus is kind of its default. Which is also handy because I recently purchased a Mac Plus, so I have kind of a virtual version that's pretty similar to the computer I have. And we're using System 6 specifically, which I find pretty nice to work in. It doesn't have multi-finder, so you can't run different programs at the same time. But I find that on an emulator, things are speedy enough that that doesn't really feel like a hindrance most of the time. The biggest Overdone mystery, how I was supposed to guess some of the stuff about the escapees. Yeah. Oh gosh, I wanna talk more about my experience, but like I said, I don't want to spoil things for people, so I'll keep my mouth shut. But yeah, some of those are really tricky. Yeah. A really good challenge. And I kind of appreciate that. I feel like in some of the cases, you don't really, there's no way to get the full information. Like you kind of have to make some guesses to some degree, I think. Maybe I just missed some things, but no multi-finder for the Plus. Well, it's just no multi-finder in like a default System 6 install. I think we could use multi-finder. Honestly, I don't remember exactly how that worked, but in System 7, multi-finder is like built in, and that's like the default experience. Hello, Puzzle. Good to see you. Finished up and loved Case of the Golden Idol recently, so it made me want to restart Overdone because I fell off it after taking a bit of a break. Oh, I would definitely recommend picking it up again, at least if you enjoyed your experience overall. Probably not for everyone, but I think it's a pretty great game. If you think of a guest or really had to dig really deep to find the necessary hints, right? I really tried to avoid like complete guessing. Like I tried to find at least some amount of evidence for every connection I made. I do think I had to eventually give in and guess a little bit. Okay. So we're just going to check that help text real quick. And then we'll set up to start doing some more sketching, which is a very like drastic shift in brain functions, but I'm sure I'll manage. Okay, so we can type help at any time and open our help. We got a little extra space on this screen, but that's okay. We can do next to get our second screen. And that one's just enough room. So we're fine there. And we can do previous to go back. Perfect. Okay. All right. I need a quick bathroom break, so I think I'll take a short break, just 2 or 3 minutes maybe. Go to the bathroom and then set up my drawing stuff, and then we'll start sketching. Just in case anyone hasn't seen what we're doing here, I'll share that real quick. Oh, I'm knocking things over. So because we're making a game with 1986 technology, I figured we would create cover art that's kind of following a more traditional process that one might have created cover art with at the time. So like I'm sketching things out on paper. I'm trying not to use computers, though I think we might have to give in at some point and get a little bit of help from computers. But the goal is to mostly sketch things out and then eventually take an attempt at painting the cover. I don't have a lot of painting experience. I have a lot of like experience with traditional art. Done a lot of sketching throughout my life, but painting in particular I've only done a little bit. So I'm concerned it won't come out the way I hope it will, but I figure it'll be fun to at least give it a shot. So once we've worked out all the details, we'll do that. And see, I had some, we did some little, just some tiny color versions to start thinking about color. We're still kind of trying to work it all out. But I think like the overall composition here is kind of close to being worked out. But today we're gonna continue refining this full, larger sketch. There's some things I want to change around, and we got to figure out what the house on this side looks like. Puzzle said, deductive games sometimes makes me laugh when I overlook something for a while and then suddenly have that moment of epiphany. Yeah, I always enjoy that a lot. Had to do some guessing a few times. I feel the deaths are really tricky to figure out the exact method of death. Yeah, for sure. Something very rewarding about cooking with the herbs of the garden plants. Nice, yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'll be back in probably about 3 minutes, and then we'll get started on drawing. See you in a few. Okay, hello. Before we get started, I just wanted to take another quick look at our kind of main inspiration art. Oh, Grundislav is streaming today. That's unusual, I think. But let's take a look here at the Enchanted Scepters box art again. I just kind of wanted to think about this again. This is kind of my primary inspiration, both like I really love the use of color here, and like it's got some nice use of like shadows. I feel like there's something like I feel like the composition of this is very like 80s. Like modern box art would not have this kind of composition. Like you'd have more focus on the character or the enemy in the background. Like there's so much space on just this tree in the background, and kind of like the alignment with the main character is a little unusual, I think. I do kind of appreciate that, like the way it's composed helps to give it a feel of being a much older game, but I'm less worried about recreating that aspect of it. So, you know, we have a very character-focused composition that we're working on here, which I think is fine. But I did want to kind of look at this again, especially after we did some experimenting with color the other day. I think, honestly, like looking at this again, it's really not as colorful as it kind of was in my head when I was working on those little thumbnails the other day. And like a lot of the color here, like if you ignore the blue of the box sides and the yellow of the logo, like there's not a huge amount. Also, like it's very different. Like I'd be really curious what the actual box art looks like in terms of like how dark the dark areas are and how saturated the colors are. I feel like this might be a little bit more representative than this. But part of what I'm struggling with, I think, is like I was trying to use more color than I normally would. I definitely tend to, like I was talking the other day about like I was struggling with finding good bright colors for the clothing because I tend to wear very muted colors myself. So like I think whenever I'm drawing people, I kind of have like this like very me-centered way of drawing a made-up character and, you know, thinking about what they would wear. But looking at this again, maybe I'm worrying about that all too much. Like we had already thought about, you know, using like a purplish color for the sky, like a very saturated purple that maybe has a little bit of pink, maybe fades to black possibly, for the sky. And then, you know, our ground is going to be a little bit similar like this. A lot of the ground is like dirt with a little bit of grass, which is not that far off from what, you know, we have in our game. And then a lot of the color here comes from the monster there, which, you know, obviously we don't have an element like that. But I feel like we can get a pretty similar vibe without necessarily having to introduce a lot of color in the character's clothing, which just kind of makes me feel better. Like, also, like, we don't have to get exactly like this. Ultimately, I just want something I'm happy with. I wanted to kind of use this as inspiration to kind of do something a little bit different, a little bit outside of like my comfort zone of color choices. So I just wanted to look at it again and kind of think about color again. It's another nice close-up. Also, I've mentioned this before, but this is a really great blog, retro365.blog. Some really nice box photos on here. Okay. So, 80s covers told many stories in contrast to the hero portraits today. Yeah, for sure. Okay. I hope to at some point upgrade this light box a little bit, but I have not had time to do that. Ideally, we want to tell a little bit of a story here, and I think we got enough elements to kind of set the scene at least. We talked about, like, this is our most recent sketch, so, and then this is kind of like the overall sketch that we're going for. Obviously, we'll have the title along the top. But the character, we want to move off to the left side a little bit more, and then we want to add, this is the house in the game that's going to be in the background. We had some discussion about the bus stop, and Unsecret Crush convinced me to flip it so it's facing the other way. I kind of like the way it worked in this little thumbnail, but I do think that overall it'll work better if it's kind of pointed towards the player character. Thank you for the follow. Good to have you here. Okay. So I think I need a fresh sheet of paper here. We never really finished the last sketch, but I think like it's done enough. Also, like we had some discussion of, let me turn this light off for a second here. Unsecret Crush shared a photo of a Delia's jacket, which is inspiration for another thing in the game, that had some nice colored stripes on it. I kind of drew an approximation of it here. And like, I do think it's a great jacket, but I think it's not quite what I want here. So I think I'm going to go back to this. Like, this is still my favorite illustration of the character so far. There's some things like this this sleeve and this hand. Oop, it's slightly off screen. But I definitely made some improvements there. But like the jacket as a whole, I think I'm going to go back to like the army green kind of bomber jacket that I had originally planned on. I don't know. It feels more right to me. I do like this little drawing of Brisket though. You hear that red jacket Michael Jackson wears in the Thriller video? This is a pretty good jacket. Okay. One of the things that's been kind of tricky about, thinking about fashion in this game is like, so it's weird. Like, we're making a game with 1986 technology, but the game itself, it's got some technology from like 99, 2000 in it, but it's set after that. So it's actually set in like 2010. So like, it's a little confusing to like remember that and like not try to like use fashion that's appropriate for the 80s or whatever. Obviously it would be fine if we did, but like that's not a goal, I guess is how I'd put it. Chad says the caramel I made yesterday, first time, came out pretty well. Nice, congrats. Sounds delicious. Okay, I'm trying to think of how exactly do I want to do this. So like, I'm just kind of talking through things as I think about them here. Okay. So here's another previous sketch. I do not have enough room on this desk. Okay, here's another previous sketch that was more like made up out of just by looking at kind of similar reference poses and stuff. But like the proportions I used here are kind of like the proportions I just kind of default to when I'm making up a character. But Cameron I always pictured as being kind of taller and skinnier. So I found a reference photo that finally I managed to find like the type of pose I was going for. So I used that for this drawing, and then I traced this one over that to kind of try to refine some things and experiment. So like, I like this a little bit better. This feels like it's getting closer to what our character looks like, but I feel like this sketch has a little bit more personality in it. And I'm just trying to think of how to get everything I like about both of these in a single drawing. I think I want to trace over this one, but try not to trace it so exactly as I did with this. I didn't put enough thought in when I was doing this drawing. I just kind of started drawing. So let's see how this goes. Like, I think I want to, like, a thing that I feel like comes up a lot in figure drawing is to have kind of like a S curve for the character's pose. Like, you know, if they're kind of, you know, tilting their hips in one direction, the shoulders should be kind of in the opposite direction. And if you kind of exaggerate that a little, it can give it a little bit more life. So I guess this is our curve here. I'm so out of practice for figure drawing. Like, I honestly should have like brushed up on figure drawing in general before I tried to tackle this, but like time constraints, my own made up time constraints, have brought me to this, and that's fine. So you can come out, well, the what style pasta? Davor, enjoy your dinner, and I hope it's great. And thanks for hanging out. Silver, hello. I hope you are doing well. Time to need some puttanesca. Got it. I think I understand the reference you were making there, but I don't fully remember. Extremely sore, but well. That's good. All right, let's turn this light back on. Okay, so another thing I forgot to do last time is to move our character more off to the side here. And let's also move her down a little bit so we have more space at the top. Probably about right. Actually, let's shoot. Do I have any tape in here? I might have to go grab a piece of... Oh, I do have tape. I have some gift tape for some reason. I just want to tape these together just a tiny bit so they don't move around too much. And then I don't have to constantly hold them in place. Post in Discord later? Nice. There's our Discord, if anyone is interested in that. Okay. Trying to find a good place to set this other drawing just for reference. Okay. Um, so like talking about this S curve, like that's kind of what we're going for, I think. And I also want to take the time to, like, I usually when I'm drawing a person, I try to kind of block out shapes. Like, kind of my approach is generally to start with, like, shoot, Unsecret Crush has, I don't think we have it out anywhere. I'm trying to remember where it is, but she's got a wooden figure, like there's these little wooden figures that are posable and you can use to kind of, you know, put in different poses to help you draw those poses. But that's kind of like the forms I like try to block out on paper as I'm drawing a person. I feel like mostly it's important to just kind of think about the figure as, you know, a three-dimensional object and not just like draw what you're seeing. Like, it's very easy to be like, oh, I see a fold here in this reference I'm looking at, so, you know, I'll draw that. And like, you know, you can get something that looks like a person that way, but if you really want to get something that looks like it has a three-dimensional shape to it and really looks great, you know, it's important to understand it as a 3D shape. So let's see, we're gonna, if the shoulders are this way, then the hips should be kind of this way, I think. I think that makes sense. I'm also trying to, like, some of the proportions of this figure seem a little, like, I think what's happening is, like, I drew the original drawing too realistic. So I'm trying to adjust things to look a little bit more stylized. Had to look that up. I thought it was a typo. Perhaps you meant whole, like whole meat. Yeah. I had to think about that for a second also. I was thinking about those figures yesterday. I think I saw there's a website that has digital versions of them, but I can't remember where it is. Oh, that's neat. Yeah, one thing I've thought about is like, if I should figure out how to, like, there's probably some tool where I can just like take a posable figure and put different clothing options on them and, you know, adjust the pose and the lighting how I want it. Even though it's cheating over my established rules a little bit, like, I'm fine with that if it gets me closer to the result I'm going for. I also might make Unsecret Crush post for some reference photos, but that's complicated because, like, I don't think it's a big deal that her proportions are different from this person, but like, ideally she'd be wearing a jacket that's pretty close to the jacket I'm trying to draw, just so like folds are happening in a way that is useful to what I'm drawing. I would need to get the lighting to be exactly how I want it in order to be the most helpful. And just like all those little things is like, it just kind of makes it complicated to plan out. And then I also just haven't had time to really think about whether that's anything doable. Oh, let's see. I talked about possibly, like, I kind of liked this arm in this photo. Like, mostly I was just relatively happy with this hand, I think. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking in my previous sketch, so I think I'll stick to that and not change it. So I thought I had Friday rather, but I think I'm gonna not do that after all. I think both arms are pretty much how we want them. Although, yeah. I had a brief thought of, like, if I change the pose of this arm, we could kind of feature the little sweetie a little bit more. But we already kind of explored that possibility once, and I think this is a better way to do it. It's fine not to show it too much. It's good that it's in there at all, I think, is what it comes down to. And with this, with the way she's holding it here, like, we'll be able to see the front, where we can see the buttons on it, which is the most interesting part of it. Let's see. Look at... Oh, shoot. I'm not going to bother to show y'all, but I just wanted to bring up one of the reference photos I had. Okay, so I'm just looking at the photo I shared on Friday that's got a post pretty similar to this. I just kind of wanted to look at, like, in the reference, she's looking straight ahead. And I kind of feel like... Oh, it's got tape there. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe what I did with the head just is a little bit off. It doesn't quite feel like it's drawn appropriate to how the body is. It's also tricky because, like, her neck feels a little bit too long, but, like, I'm also trying to, you know, that's kind of the proportions I'm going for. So there's like a constant, like, does this feel weird because it's not how I normally draw a person's proportions, or because it's not correct? I'm putting in too much detail here right now. Okay. Shoulders are... Actually, I guess the reference photo has very similar shoulders, so that's kind of how I got here, I suppose. Which is fine. Something is off. Like, I think this comes over too far. Maybe. Let's turn this light off for a second. Oh. I sat away too long. And now my foot's asleep. Also, we've got a decent amount of light from the window right now, but I think I might turn on my key light now, at least a little bit. Brighten things up a bit. That's better. Okay. Slowly getting there, I think. I think before I go too far with the character, I want to work out some of the background stuff. So let's move on to that, and then we'll come back to the character. Let's see. I had my work in progress itch page up the other day, and that was a handy reference for various things we need to draw in the game. So we're going to draw the bust out next. So for a while now, I've been drawing the bust out facing the other direction, just because I was thinking that would work better in this composition, but we had a discussion about it the other day and decided it'll work best to have it going the same direction that it is in the game. So it's kind of Unsecret Crush is trying to describe this as like, it feels weird if the bus stop is looking away from the character, whereas if it's in this position, it's looking toward the character. So it's like drawing your eye towards the character, ideally. Yeah. So I think this, just the lines of this will work better to accomplish that. Let's see. First, we got to figure out where it goes. I wish. Oh wait, that's not the. This is the one. So this, we want to kind of have this hilly area in the background. We're kind of we're tweaking what's in the game a little bit. In the game, we have the bus stop itself is on a very flat area, but this is on a hilly area and it's nearby. So the relative positions of these two things are fairly accurate in our drawing here. I think realistically there might be a little bit more distance between them, but you know, certainly you could find an angle where you see the bus stop and the house in the distance without much space between them. If this was a real space we could walk around in. So we're trying to kind of smush these things together and figure out like what this whole environment looks like. So I think realistically, like you know, our bus stop is kind of on this higher up hill here, and then when we go down the house, we're going down a slope a bit and then walking up to it. So we're going to start with this hill and let's see, I'm trying to get similar overall composition to this. So I'm just thinking about where exactly these lines should go. So this gives us like this part of the hill that we see in the game here, and then the house will be back here. Something like that. And then this is where our bus stop is. Salt Ranger, hello, good to see you. Art stream indeed. Okay, and then I gotta not look at this because that's not how I'm drawing the bus stop. The other tricky thing is thinking about perspective here. I think for now, I'm just going to sketch it out and not think about perspective too much. And then later we will think about perspective and probably have to fix a lot of lines. Mostly I want to think about composition right now. So we want to get in the sign that has the little bus stop icon on it. At least I think I want to get that in. It's possible we'll kind of pretend that doesn't exist if it feels like it's making a composition feel weird. But I'd like it to be there. Another thing I've been trying to do is like we want the bus stop to be in the background with a decent amount of space behind it. This is another thing Unsecret Crush convinced me of. Like, we want it to feel like it's in a open area and kind of isolated. Just to give it a feeling of emptiness around it. But then I also am worried this composition as a whole is going to look... like if I look at this sketch, it's like we just have these different things kind of plopped around. Like it looks like I'm just trying to fill empty space or something. Like there's no overlapping here. And I guess maybe if we push the bus stop back a little more and emphasize that empty space better, that'll help. But I feel like maybe the problem is we need something going on in the foreground here around Brisket to like kind of pull our foreground elements together. Like I don't want this to feel like, you know, we just have these separate things that are just kind of, like I said, just kind of plopped into, you know, whatever space we had to fit them in. I want it to feel like it's part of a whole, which is tricky. Especially when like this environment, you know, we've intentionally created an environment that's very sparse and there's not a lot going on. But I think it's totally fair to like around the house we have some trees and bushes. So obviously those types of things exist in this space, and we can, you know, in between areas we can kind of put some stuff like that, which might help. I'm trying to think of like what could be around Brisket specifically, just to I'm not sure. But maybe there's like I don't know, a little bit of a bush or plant near them or something. Maybe something that kind of comes around over here a little bit even. I'm just kind of drawing vague shapes because I don't know what this could be. We'll figure it out. But the bus stop should be, I think, at least a little bit smaller than I drew it in the last drawing. So yeah, I think I like the top of it kind of even with the shoulders here, but then the bottom of it will be higher than I've drawn it previously, so maybe around here. We'll see how this works out. This is a thing where it would be so much easier to use a computer and be able to play with like the arrangement of these different things on a page without having to redraw every time. You can also potentially do that with like, this is definitely a thing I've done before, especially in college. Like you can put things on tracing paper and that lets you move them around. Like you know, if you cut them out especially, or you know, even just regular paper, if you cut something out really close, then you can kind of, you know, adjust its position and play with the arrangement of things, and then, you know, you trace over it all once you have worked that out. So I think this is going to end up being a pretty similar angle on the bus stop to what we have in the game. I was kind of trying to make it a little bit different, but that's okay. Like, if the in-game angle is what works best, that's totally fine. Probably try to put a little more detail into it. And then this, I think, is too tall, comes down too far. Let's also maybe move it a little bit closer to the bus stop. I'm gonna make it slightly taller than it is in the game. I don't mind cheating a little bit if it works out well. I think I like that. I'll probably add a little, some tufts of grass around it. Probably around the bus stop as well. In game, like I kind of pictured what I drew as having dirt mostly around the bus stop, which I think is what we'll do here, but like given that there's grass just beyond it, you know, it makes sense for some little bits of grass to have popped up around here. And I'll just kind of add a little visual interest, I think. So let's see if we can make this a little bit flatter maybe than I've drawn it previously, so it looks slightly closer. To what's in the game. Have it kind of flatten off on this side maybe. I think we're getting somewhere here. I'm also getting graphite all over my left hand. All right, let's figure out this. Well, let's think about perspective a tiny bit. So, let's do a little perspective lesson for anyone that doesn't. Trying to find just a piece of cheap paper. I know I have some. There we go. Okay. So, perspective. Where's my ruler? So, if you want to draw something in proper perspective, first thing you need to do is figure out where your horizon line is. And then, like, say we're trying to draw a bus stop here. So, like, let's sketch it out real quick. Just in the middle here. So we have kind of like this. And something like this. And then we got a little bench here. Also, I definitely did not think about drawing accurate perspective when I drew this in the game. Just FYI. I tried to like clean it up later, but I also tried to not think about it too hard because I knew that if I did that, it would just make me sad. Okay, but you know, this is kind of roughed in, and then actually we'll put our little sign in here as well, because it's kind of it gives us an adjacent object where we should be thinking about perspective. So, like, if this is drawn accurately, these lines on here should all come to the same vanishing point on the horizon line. So you draw a line like that, and then this should come to the same point. So I managed to get not too far off with those lines, which is always exciting. But then that tells us, like, you know, if we're trying to draw another line like in here, you know, that makes it easy. We just start at this vanishing point and just kind of adjust our ruler till we get the distance apart we want, and then we know exactly where that line should be to have it look correct. Hello, Snowy P. Good to see you. And then this is also helpful because, like, something that is above the horizon line, you're going to see the bottom of it, Something that's below the horizon line, you know, you'll see the top of it. And something that's right on the horizon line, you won't see either. You just see the front of it. So, you know, if this bench happened to be up here, like we do have like this, honestly don't know what this detail is supposed to be. It's just probably something that was in a reference photo. But, you know, if that happened to be something that was sticking out like a bench, you know, we wouldn't see the top or bottom of it all. We'd just see that front part of it if it was right on the horizon line. And then like this side of the bus, these lines should also come to the same vanishing point, which I can tell right now that that line is way off. Basically, anything that is parallel is going to come to the same vanishing point. And obviously, you know, this is a, you know, these shapes on the bus stop are rectangular, so they're going to come to the same vanishing point. So, you know, you can see now that I got that line way off for where I put the vanishing point. And then these lines should all be straight up and down. And then for the other face of this, obviously we're going to have a vanishing point in the opposite direction. And I definitely don't know/remember enough about perspective to tell you if there's a correct way to determine where this vanishing point should be. Ultimately, you can pick wherever you want for the vanishing point to some degree, but like you know, for the opposite angles, I guess ultimately it's just altering where you would be standing from left to right as you're looking at it. I haven't thought about this stuff to this degree in a long time. This is definitely another case where, like, you know, these days a lot of people would just, like, you know, either take a reference photo and use that to answer these questions, or you know, you could use a 3D model as your reference if you're doing something a little unusual where it's hard to get a reference photo. But I think we can pretty much get away with just picking any vanishing point we want, and like we're not making something that's wrong. We're just kind of altering the perspective of where the viewer would be in order to get this appearance. And then like this line, like I was pretty sure that was a line I adjusted a lot in the in-game version because I knew the way I originally drew it was very wrong. But I've done it again here. So like this would actually be on a line that is at a much more extreme angle. And I think ultimately, like, we wouldn't see this bench shape would not be as thick as I've drawn it in the game if we're trying to draw it more accurately. And then, so like, now I want to figure out, okay, where should this line here be? So this line, like the back of the inside area. But now that we have perspective lines, we can just say, okay, so here's this corner here, and the back wall is going to go to this vanishing point. So that gives us the back of the bus stop that we can't really see. And then we have this point here is the front corner. And then like the left side edge is going to go over to this vanishing point. So that gives us that line, and then the part where they cross is where the back of this bus stop would be. But it is worth considering, you know, this wall is going to have a little bit of thickness to it. So, you know, realistically, this line is probably We could figure this out more accurately if we wanted to, but we're just going to say it's a little bit over to the left more here. It's okay to cheat a little bit. Like, ultimately, I feel like unless you're trying to draw something that's super precise, like, it's totally fine to cheat a little bit, and most people aren't going to notice if it's a little bit off. But, like, if you take the time to think about what is the correct way to draw something like this, like, it'll help it look better overall. And then, like, for example, I was thinking the base of this sign would maybe be kind of parallel with this edge of the bus stop. So if we want it to be sitting there, then the correct spot would be somewhere along this line here. So that helps us find the bottom of this. I'm not going to worry about drawing this pole perfectly straight. And then if we say, okay, so this flat side of this sign should be, you know, along the same, like parallel with this wall as well, then we can, you know, use our same vanishing point. And, you know, since this sign could be potentially facing in any direction, that's not necessarily what we want. But this will help us, you know, figure out where these lines should be to some degree. And if we want it to be facing in a little bit different direction, you know, we just adjust where it's always going to, these lines are always going to come to the same horizon line. It's just where the vanishing point is would vary somewhat. Like if we make them go to a vanishing point that's further out here, it's going to be like making the sign tilt more towards us. Whereas if we bring the vanishing point over this way, it's going to be tilting away from us. But I think this kind of looks good. You know, it's rough, but that's a little bit more precise of a drawing. And I just kind of wanted to both give an explanation of a proper perspective as much as I'm able to. I'm sure there's better sources of this information, but it seemed worth going over and also kind of refreshing my own memory. So my goal here is we're going to do very roughly something like this on this bigger drawing to help me figure out what exactly we would be seeing of the house that's over here. It's not going to be necessarily like I said, you know, it'll have the same horizon line because, you know, there's only one horizon line. Like if an object is, you know, tilted in a different direction, the vanishing points are still going to be on that horizon line. Vanishing point, this equal to transfer point, yes. So our vanishing point is probably going to be a little bit above this hill, I think. It could potentially be below the hill. So like, you know, if you're actually looking in real life, like if you're able to see far enough in the distance, you know, that horizon line is, you know, that's your horizon line. You know, if you have like things obstructing your view, if you have a lot of mountains, like mountains are, you know, gonna be above the horizon line, of course. So like this hill could potentially be above the horizon line, but I don't think it probably is. And then the other thing is, since we're in this weird space, which we've described as beyond the bus stop is complete darkness, like in what we're drawing here, everything kind of fades out before it gets to the horizon line. So you cannot see the horizon here. But we need to know where it is in order to draw things correctly. So I'm just going to say for now that it's probably... Oh, also another thing which I totally blanked on for a minute is like the horizon line is basically your eye line. So, like, if we are the same height and standing at the same level as a character, their eyes will be on the horizon line. So we're putting our viewpoint a little bit lower than that, which I think is pretty typical. I'm thinking, like, I feel like what feels natural in a drawing tends to be like similar to how things are frequently photographed. So, you know, typically you're holding a camera either at eye level or maybe a little below. More fog than a PS1 game. Maybe not quite, actually. Those PS1 games can have some pretty serious fog. I think less fog than Silent Hill, certainly. Okay. I kind of wish I had like a T-square. I'm trying to get a line that is square here. That's tricky. Oh, let's see. I can measure. I have a ruler, so. Protagonist color scheme manifested Silent Hill in front of the film. Yeah. Last stream we talked about how I gave our character a very James Sunderland outfit. Particularly the color scheme. Okay, so that's 5 1/4 inches down. And there's 5 1/4 on the other side. Too many papers here. Can we just take a moment to talk about how, like, I try to share what knowledge I have when I'm streaming things, and I also try not to second guess myself constantly. It's a very weird experience. I'm generally not a very talkative person, but you know, I try to be talkative on stream because that seems more interesting than just doing everything in silence. And again, I like sharing the knowledge that I have. But it always feels weird to be like explaining something like perspective and probably getting a lot of things wrong and like not knowing a lot of things. But, you know, if you want a good lesson on perspective, like I said, I'm sure there's better sources of information, but hopefully that gives you an idea and didn't sound like I was completely making things up. Okay, I think that's a good horizon line that feels right to me. So that can help me figure out how to more accurately draw our bus stop and then determine the angle of the house here. I think for the house, I guess ultimately my thought is we also want the house to be looking at the character. Like, that's definitely the angle I was thinking of drawing the house, and I think it fits with the scene we've set up here. So I think that's what we'll do. So like this is the front. And then we'll see a little bit of the roof here, which is kind of has some interesting shapes going on. And then we've also got some bushes out front, and then there's a tree here that could kind of make this background more interesting. I'm worried that this side of the illustration is getting a little cluttered, but that's also like, that's what we did on purpose, because, you know, we talked about giving this bus stop a lot of space to make it feel isolated. And I think I think if I'm able to like get this drawing a brisket down here and kind of pull all of this stuff together, then it'll create this sense of isolation around the bus stop. And the rest of this will, like, ideally our character and brisket are kind of like a cohesive foreground element. And then this will, you know, like the house area is going to be darker, slightly less detailed. So that'll kind of fade in the background and it'll just fill in that space there. I think it'll all work out in the end. Okay, I need to bring up my house reference here. So like, we'll see mostly this area of the house. It'd be nice to get the front door in now that I think about it. I'm not sure if we'll quite have enough space for that. But we'll definitely see, like, from this line over to the right. Let's see, what did I think this here is about the most I've sketched for this so far. I haven't thought about it in too much detail yet. So let's start with the what's this thing called? Balcony. I think you would call this a balcony. I'm not sure if it's really like, I don't know, like, this is modeled after a real house, and I don't know if this is necessarily a place where people would be able to come out and stand, but I feel like it would probably be called a balcony regardless. But that's just arguing about the technical definition of balcony, and isn't that important. Let's see. So this is going to come a little bit higher on the horizon line, probably. Faux balconies are for people who want to be fancy. Yeah, I suppose so. Let's see. I'm just thinking about like, so like the horizon is your eye level, right? So if something is on the horizon line, it's like the same height as the viewer. So like, because we are here at the top of this hill, like the house is going to be a bit lower down. I'm just kind of trying to think about. I guess it's also further back than the bus stop, so that's why it's higher up to some degree. So that's not contradictory. I just had to kind of think about that for a second. Okay. I'm just going to leave those lines where they are now, and we'll clean them up later. And then here's the upper story of the house. And then the roof kind of comes out here. And then it kind of swoops back here. And just something like that. I got some windows here. Yeah, let's see, it's drawn a little bit more of this balcony. This might be too close. It's tricky. it feels a little too close, but also maybe that works better with the composition and I just shouldn't worry about it. Just because, like, you know, ideally, I don't want the house to be the same visual size as the bus stop, just because that makes things less visually interesting as a whole. So I think making it a little bigger is better. And I don't think it looks that far off. It just means we're kind of standing over at an area that's closer to the house, which I think is probably semi-realistic. Got some nice arches here. And let's see, we have... So the lower story of the house is on a line that's like this. This comes straight down here. And it's just the porch lines come out from it. Maybe this is up higher, actually. Yeah, I think that's a little better. And then we have bushes. And then we have a tree back here. Let's see, so I think the way I've drawn the tree, it's kind of on the side of the house, but back a little. So at this angle, we probably have a lot of tree around here. And then the trunk is maybe around here. So we have a branch that comes off here. Yeah, I think that seems about right. Okay, let's think about brisket. I think I'm gonna take this off here. I don't think I'll need to trace this anymore. Like, I've got the overall shapes of things, and like the other details I can just look at. But I do think I want to trace that last drawing I did of brisket, because that came out pretty, like, I like the overall proportions of it, I think. It's pretty simplified. And I definitely need to figure out what their back legs look like. Actually, let's see if I can find a slightly better reference for that. Which is great because we can all look at pictures of cats. Okay. So I want to find a similar angle. This one's not bad. Get out of here. What? No, I do not want to modify with AI. Stop this. Go away. What? Why would it go away? That's so rude. We can just open the image. There we go. Okay. What is this? Is upsetting. We might just go with that one. That's pretty good. Yeah. Like our angle is a little bit different. We're up higher. But, you know, I just kind of wanted something that'll remind me of where these feet should be. And this is also helpful. I was wondering if, like in my sketch, I have Brisket's tail coming around the side here and kind of wrapping around. And I was kind of worried, like, I'm allergic to most cats, so I don't spend a ton of time around cats. And I just started wondering if, oh, maybe cats normally sit with their tail, like, closer to them. But I don't think that's necessarily true. Like, here's another one where the tail is kind of similar to how I've drawn it. It just seemed worth thinking about briefly. So I think, even if I can't find a reference of what I've drawn here, I think I can get away with that. I might want to think about, like, probably this curve should come up a bit higher because, like, right now it's kind of curving in, like, too much, like as though the tail is attached to their side. Sorry, I wasn't showing what I was pointing at, but I think the curve should come up higher so it looks like it's connected in back. Good evening, Arabello. Good to see you. Usually depends on how the kitty is feeling. Okay, that makes sense. I would assume that if they're keeping their tail close to them, they're kind of being more guarded. Whereas if they're not so worried about it, they're more relaxed, which I think is what we're going for. I think Brisket is pretty comfortable in this environment. Okay, so position is something I do want to think about. I'm not sure about that. Tape keeps sticking to things. Take this piece off. Unless it's sleepy time, then they often sleep with their tail against themselves for warmth. Oh, interesting. Makes sense. Thank you for the cat facts. I'm trying to think about what... I think Brisket should be fairly close to Cameron here. But they're sitting further back. But we also don't want them too close to the bus stop. We'll go with that for now. It feels about right. I just checked on Jasper snoozing near me, and yep, his tail is tucked in against him. If there's one thing I'm good for, it's mostly useless cat facts. That's great, though. Okay, for Brisket here, I'm just gonna kind of trace this pretty close to how I've drawn it, and then we'll try to fill in the details a little more accurately. I should also bring up my in-game drawing of Brisket for reference to make sure we get their face correct. Correct-ish, anyway. Honestly, the close-up of Brisket is very different from the further out shot when you're in the study, but that's okay. Okay, so tail should be connecting back here more. So I feel like something like this is a little more appropriate. Maybe still not perfect, but that's okay. Okay. I think that's good enough for now. Okay, so I think our front paws are pretty good. Feels right to me. I think we'd see a tiny little bit of this paw back here. And then the other back paw should be around here. And gosh, like it's so tricky to draw a cat. Like I'm trying to like fully understand the shapes here. Like just like this area here, like I feel like it's just kind of a big poofy thing when they're sitting down. Okay, let's bring up... I'm not sure I have a screenshot of Brisket handy. We might have to open up the game real quick. Let's do that. Let's just... I think we can just go in World Builder and open up that scene there. It's probably the fastest way. Now that all my cheat codes have been removed. There we go. Okay. I think pretty close to what I drew, but still helpful to check. need a stretch break. Looks pretty much like a cat, I'd say. I'm just kind of pondering our overall composition here. I think it's pretty good. Did I maybe put brisket a little too far to the left? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break. We'll say about 5 minutes. I think I'll just leave this scene on and mute my mic since I didn't give myself a good art stream BRB screen. I want people who come by to see what I'm actually working on. Actually, no, we got brisket up. We can just do our regular scene. Everyone will know I'm drawing cats. That's the important thing. So I'll be back in about 5 minutes or so. See you in a few. My body is unhappy with me today. I don't know why. It's probably just because I'm old. I feel like drawing on stream, at least, is harder on my body than just normal streaming. I think because, like, this is a streaming setup designed for playing games at the computer, so it's kind of optimized for that. Whereas I'm hunched over more a little bit if I'm drawing. Oh, where'd my pillow go? That helped a little bit when I had that. Also have a case of the olds today. Getting old kind of sucks. Yeah, a little bit. Somebody said my body decided I needed a quick nap because I just snapped awake in my chair as soon as Robot Spacer came back. I'm sorry I woke you up, Silver. I'll try to come back more quietly in the future when anyone is napping. So we have until about 8 or so. Whenever I do a Sunday stream, it's almost always because Unsecret Crush is playing Werewolf, although she's not actually playing Werewolf, apparently. They're all just chatting, which is totally reasonable. I got myself a Tiny Coke. A Tiny Coke Zero. Hello, Dronon. Good to see you. Also, hello, Culinary. I don't think I said hello to you. I hope you are both doing well. Culinary a shout out. How's the art going? I just got back from my anniversary date with Ellie. Oh, nice. I hope you had a great time. The art's going pretty good. So here's what we're working on. I hit the wrong button when I came back. So previously we had a little bit more detailed figure, but I'm just trying to, like, I spent some time trying to tweak the pose a little bit to make it just a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more stylized than what I had previously, but kind of keep the same proportions. And now we're just trying to fill in a little bit more detail and accuracy than we've had before the rest of the illustration. I think like each time I've drawn this, we're getting a little bit closer. We're figuring out more details. Like this is just the process. It feels like I'm drawing this thing so many times, but like if I was doing this digitally, it'd just be a bunch of layers. It'd be kind of the same process. Because of things computers can do, you know, it'd be a little bit easier and faster overall, but it wouldn't be that dissimilar. Someone says, do not apologize. I was invested in the biscuit art, and then my body decided, oh, it is break time for me too. Brisket. No biscuit art, unfortunately. Keep forgetting about the brisket emote, and it makes me smile every time it comes up again. Good, I'm glad. "10 years. Nice. Congrats. Doing well. Got to take the subby out for a spin today. We went to Forestier Underground Gardens. It was so freaking cool. That, I don't know what that is, but that sounds amazing. I'm going to Google it real quick. Also, what's a subby? I'm trying to type with my right hand only, and it's not going well. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Siri suggestions. Oh, this looks cool as hell. Nice. But also I should make biscuits. Biscuits are very good. Okay, I had to have a granola bar during my break because it's gonna be a while till we have dinner, and honestly, even after the granola bar, I'm still very hungry. It's okay though. Subaru. Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. I don't know that I've ever heard Subby as short for Subaru, but that's kind of great. Now I'm thinking about how I have this problem. I have a lot of problems related to my interest in graphic design. If something is designed, let's see. I think the thing that comes up most often, if something is designed visually in a way that offends me, even if it is a very nice product and otherwise completely fine, I can't buy it. Closely related is if something has a really ugly logo, it's really hard to convince me to purchase that product. And then kind of the opposite issue is sometimes if a thing has a logo that I really enjoy and appreciate, that kind of makes me somewhat more interested in that company's products. And I've kind of I've been interested in a Subaru as our next vehicle, and my appreciation of their logo is definitely a part of that. Subi. Okay, got it. That makes sense. Baltimore, hello. How you doing? Good to see you. I have the car I beat Racing Lagoon with IRL. With the Chocobo, I assume you don't actually have Chocobo decals on it, but maybe you should get them. Doing pretty good? Nice. I'm doing pretty good also. I'm having a nice time working on this illustration. It's been a nice weekend. We finished Lamplight City yesterday, which is such a good game. We'll probably watch some TV and relax later. Salt Ranger says I'm also a design snob. 6-7 says that explains why you have so many little sweetie products. Yes. Need the Chocobo decal that's after the next Vortex generator panel. Have Lamplight City on my midweek point and click list. Nice. I would definitely like Silver and I are going to do another playthrough of that, or at least partial playthrough next Saturday. Is kind of wrapping up our time with it. Oh, I love those emotes. Those are great. So the second one, Bill, shit, what is that actor's name? When I saw that character in game and looking at the emote again now, reminds me of someone. The guy, why can't I think of his name? The guy that played Arthur Dent in the Martin Freeman. I'm looking up his photo because I want to see if he really looks like that or if it's just kind of a in my head thing. I do feel like the art in that, the character portraits in that game feel very much like each one was inspired by a specific real actor. They just kind of have that vibe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at a picture of Martin Freeman right now. It doesn't seem quite right, but I still feel like there might be some inspiration there. Marlon Brando. Oh, interesting. That's very different. I feel like if I found the right picture of Martin Freeman, I would be able to make a convincing argument. But I'm not seeing it offhand here, and I don't want to spend all stream looking at pictures of Martin Freeman. Puzzle says, I'm very proud of you both for beating LLC. It's so good, and now I can say it without worry. I truly love that cases have an easy, unsatisfying ending, but a much more fascinating one if you dig deeper. Yeah, I really love, like, just the whole game design approach was really well done. Dronon, I feel like there's a word missing from your sentence here. I assume you meant to say I was at the Grundislav talk you linked to about adventure game design. Some really interesting personal takes Not sure I agree with all of them, but I understand where he's coming from. Yeah, that was how I felt about it also. And I think his like he explained his thought process in like the evolution of his design of the interaction in his games, and I think he had some good arguments, and he made it clear that he is not necessarily convinced of like one specific way to handle interaction, because he keeps evolving it over time, which is totally smart. I'm really curious to like play Rosewater when it comes out and kind of look at the changes he made compared to Lamplight City. You mean Young Bilbo? Yes. Used to go to work with my mom in Studio City as a kid, and Marlon Brando would get his dog groomed there. Oh, that's fascinating. Martin Freeman did a great movie called Ghost Stories. That sounds... I haven't watched a ton of Martin Freeman stuff, but I have generally enjoyed the stuff he's been in, so I'm going to look that up. And like Ghost Stories as a subject are enjoyable to me. 2017. I'm kind of surprised that doesn't sound familiar. Watched. Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you for clarifying. When his dog passed away, he passed on the dog's bed to our family dog, Oliver. Oh my gosh, that's so nice. Snowy saw the talk live. I agree with you. I'm not 100% sure I agree with everything. I discussed quite a bit with Grundy after the talk. That's great. Been getting someone to play Unavowed recently, and they had descriptions automatically pop up when the mouse floated over anything important. Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's really cool to see. Like, first of all, I love that like point and click adventure games are like kind of thriving these days. Like, it's not like the big like AAA studios or whatever aren't making point and click games. But like, who cares? Like, as far as like indie developers, like there's a bunch of different developers making point and click games, and like you can see they're all kind of built on like the classic style for the most part, but like everybody's doing kind of a little bit different takes and kind of experimenting with how to modernize the gameplay. Like Whispers of a Machine, I watched Silver play a while back, and that has a thing where you can press a key and see all the hotspots, so anything you can click on. I think, did Kathy Rain have that too? I kind of think it did. But that's another thing where it's like it can kind of feel like it's making the game too easy. If if you grew up on adventure games, it can feel like, oh, well, having to find some little item in the scene and notice that that's important is kind of part of the game. But also, like, it helps new players find these games and make them more approachable to them. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to make the game easier. Like, you figure out different ways to create challenges in your game, I think. And it's kind of the same thing with the one-click interface. Like, I still think that was a great challenge. To me, it felt like Lamplight City was easier overall than a lot of adventure games I've played, but I still felt challenged the whole time. I never felt like I never felt like we were just like going through steps and like everything was too simple. We had to constantly think about things. and constantly consider, do we have all the appropriate evidence? Have we investigated this thoroughly and stuff like that? So like I feel like the interface there just made it so that we never got too frustrated. We never got stuck for a long period of time just trying to figure out the correct action. It was kind of nice to rarely be in a scenario where we're just kind of mousing around a lot and clicking on things repeatedly trying to figure out what the heck we missed. So I think, like, even though that approach to the UI might not work for every game, like, he did a great job of making it work great for his game. Only know of the Ghost Stories anime, which has an amazing English dub. Yeah, I'm familiar with that too, though I don't think I ever watched it. I was always kind of interested in it. Silver is also bringing that up. Oh, Baltimore says, I saw Ghost Stories in the theater also. Play theater, not cinema theater. Oh, okay, that's cool. Connor says, AAA studio would make the longest, most boring point and click. Yeah. I will say, like, I feel like there's certain games that feel like they're kind of pulling some inspiration from the history of point and click games. I definitely enjoy, like, modern big budget action adventure type games where it feels like you're doing a lot of exploring and have some, like, occasional puzzles to solve and stuff. But generally, like, a big studio is gonna give you some kind of, like, shooting gameplay or something like that, just because I guess they're doing what they know and what people are gonna buy. Whispers is really neat. I hadn't known about Nordic noir as a genre, and that combined it with cyberpunk. Yeah. I would love to play that myself at some point, I think, but, like, that was a game where I watched Silver's playthrough pretty closely, so I gotta forget more of it before I come back to it on my own. Puzzle says, Case of the Golden Idol has a button you can press for hotspots, so it's optional, and I like that I could turn it off if I had trouble finding one last keyword and such. Yeah. Silver says, the challenge was piecing together the right perpetrator rather than, like, inventory puzzles. Yeah, for sure. I do feel like maybe if you had a more, like, a game that's more focused on, like, environment puzzles rather than this kind of detective mystery gameplay, maybe that UI would be harder to make work well. But I think also if you take that kind of UI and think it through well, you could potentially come up with a way to solve those problems and not make it feel too easy. Baltimore says, Book of Unwritten Tales 2 is doing it really well, where use hotspots only show for items that can be used with. Also, you can exhaust hotspot dialogue and they will disappear after interacting if they aren't to be used again. That's nice. That's pretty cool. Somebody said, my feeling is that the point-and-click market is extremely unsaturated. I usually wait years for a new one I want to play it, and then wait for the next one. That's probably a great place for the indie scene to be. Yeah, definitely. Mass Effect is as close as you're going to get. Yeah, Mass Effect is definitely... like, I feel like almost any game I enjoy has, like, a little bit of a connection to, like, that point and click adventure style gameplay. Mental note, I keep ruining potential adventure game playthroughs for Robot Spacer. Need to kick him out of streams. That's okay. Like, you know, like if I know I want to play a game, I won't watch the stream, or at least I'll, you know, not watch too closely. So like that was a case where I was interested in the game, but like there's so many games to play, I wasn't sure if I would necessarily get around to it. So I made the choice to watch it, and I'm glad I did, because it was enjoyable, and now I know that it is interesting to me. And I've got too many things floating around my brain, so I'll forget it all eventually. Like, I already don't remember a lot of it. You know, I've been rambling about the game all day, and I apologize. No worries. No need to apologize. Completed it the other night and really scratched the deductive reasoning itch. Yeah. That one, that is one that I am almost entirely unspoiled. Like, I watched French Toast Please play a teeny tiny bit of it. I've heard so many things said to me about Case of the Golden Idol that, like, I know it's a game that would appeal to me. I was kind of put off by the art. It just is a very unique art style that did not immediately appeal to me in screenshots. But then I watched French Toast Please play it, and like there's a lot of animation going on that's really well done, and that helps sell me on the art style as well. So I'm very excited to play it eventually. And I, like, in terms of story, I know nothing about it. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. Can't wait for you to play Zero Escape or AI the Somnium Files. I definitely am very curious about those as well. I'm a little worried they're like too much in the visual novel side of things, which I'm not opposed to, like as far as playing, but I worry like streaming them might not be as interesting. But from what you've said, maybe I'm wrong about that. As a reminder, my Quest for Glory 1 playthrough started over 3 years ago now. Yes, it is time soon. The problem with that is, like, I want to play all those games. So that's like a big commitment. Monkey Island 2 and Pentiment were technically made by Microsoft, but only technically. Monkey Island 2? Really? That can't be right. Can it? I've explicitly not seen a single thing on Golden Idol because someone said it reminded them of this discovery from Outer Wilds. I'll play it someday. Outer Wilds is another one. Fortunately, I don't know much about that, but it sounds like people really love it. Connor says I was turned off by the art shown in screenshots too, but I ended up loving the style. Yeah, I think it seems like it works really well for the game, and definitely seeing it animated, like when you look at the art style, it's just in a screenshot, like I don't know, I feel like seeing it animated helped me appreciate the work that was put into it, and just gave it some life that was life and playfulness that was maybe not as apparent in screenshots. Return to Monkey Island, not 2. Oh, okay, got it. The thing about the visual novel stuff is that you're constantly rethinking what you know during it. Okay, interesting. It is a big brain detective series. Okay, noted. To get around to playing Outer Wilds, the GF loved it, and I thinks I will enjoy it quite a bit, so I picked it up. Just waiting until I'm in the mood for it. Nice. Total runtime of my Quest for Glory playlist is 52 and a half hours. Make any assumptions off that as you will. See, the problem there is that's a lot of hours. Also, you had played it before. And I know you did grinding off stream. So, it'll take me a lot longer than that. So you've just convinced me it's going to take a huge amount of time. I think you're fighting against what you're trying to convince me of here. Okay, we're going to draw more. I enjoy just chatting. But it's when I start chatting a lot and comments keep popping up in chat, like it's hard to get back to what I was doing. I can't do two things at once. We don't have a lot more time here. I'm trying to remember what are we working on now? Do I need reference up? I guess we should. Let's think about perspective. So this is where perspective gets a little tricky. So like, you know, I talk about vanishing points, and like the vanishing points here are going to be off the paper. Like these two lines converge over here. So in order to figure this out and make sure everything is correct, we need more paper. Oh no, it's not blank. One moment. There we go. Read the entire Higurashi VN series. It was great. Got 2 chapters into Umineko, but lost my save when a drive got damaged in my move for university. Oh no. Quest for Glory 3 is definitely the one I got lost or stuck the most in. If there's one thing I know about adventure games, it's 40% wandering around in the desert. Very true. Sierra in particular seemed to really put a lot of deserts into their games. I'm trying to think of a LucasArts desert, and I can't. I'm not quite as familiar with the whole all the LucasArts stuff as I am with Sierra. Yeah, Fate of Atlantis had a desert, but did it have a desert of like that's like a vast area where you can get easily lost in, is what I couldn't remember. The Dig kinda? I don't remember what the desert was like in that either. Not really. Okay. There's one in Algeria in Fate of Atlantis. Okay. Alright, so let's see. I'm going to grab these pieces of tape I got here. Let's see, we probably don't need that much of this. I'm not worried about perfecting the perspective here. I just want to make sure nothing is way off. So I think these angles are kind of nice. Like it's nice if these lines can kind of draw your eye towards the character here. So I might adjust. Well, I think that's too extreme of an angle. I'll stick close to what we've already drawn here. So, if that's our vanishing point, I guess we end up with that anyway. Interesting. Is that okay? I'm going to adjust things a little bit. If I'm worried that's going to be too far off from what I drew, ended up looking weird. So let's try something like this for the top, and then that means we have to adjust the bottom. Yeah, that seems better to me. What's everyone's favorite desert sequence in a game? Oh gosh. I just remembered all the time I spent in Conquest of Camelot trying to make sense of that desert. And then it was just a thing I just completely overlooked. It was kind of hilarious. It feels wrong to call it a favorite, because I don't know if it's necessarily particularly well done or anything, but like I do think pretty fondly of the desert in King's Quest V. Overall, I think I have much more fondness for that game than most people do. But I really enjoyed it. I think having grown up on other Sierra games kind of prepared me for its crueler moments. And I feel like that was a pretty good desert to explore. Like, I was able to figure out how to map it out without a huge struggle. And it had just enough interesting stuff in it to frequently give you like a sense of discovery, like, oh, I finally found something interesting in the desert. So that's the one that comes to my mind the most when I think about desert sequences. Shoot, there was also like kind of off in a different direction, but I just remembered one of the Uncharted games, I can't remember which one, had a pretty good desert sequence, as I recall. I wish I could remember what one that was. I'm pretty sure it was an Uncharted game. But it was pretty nicely done for that type of game. Connor said, my favorite is probably the Desert of Death in Breath of Fire 3, where you need to use celestial navigation to cross the desert. That sounds interesting. Solranger said, I really like the desert sequence of Diablo 2, but it doesn't hold up well for me as Quest for Glory 2. I played a lot of... wait. I was going to say I played a lot of Diablo 2, but maybe actually most of the time I spent was in the first game. I can't remember a desert sequence. Also, I haven't played that in since it came out. Puzzle said, King's Quest V Desert is the one I spent the most time in for sure. I get to do it again too because I'm messing with the NES port. Ooh, that's fun. I really want to play that sometime. It's such a weird and fascinating port. Dronin said, despite the frustrations, I actually kind of like King's Quest V, but admit to its flaws. I think, yeah, it was designed. I think it was designed for people like me that had played a lot of Sierra games and appreciated a challenge. Enjoyed things like mapping, and knew to save often and keep lots of save files throughout your game. So like, especially now, like someone playing it, you know, more recently without like a lot of that history of playing other Sierra games, it feels especially unfairly designed. But if you understand the expectations and like the time it was designed in, you know, like making a game challenging then was kind of considered like people wanted that. And like, you know, you could certainly argue whether, you know, wandering around in a desert or having to like practically start the game over because you screwed up one thing early on was really what people wanted. Like, that's a fair argument to have. But like, I feel like, you know, they really tried to give people a good and unique challenge. And personally, I found it pretty successful. It's fine once you know the locations of the Nectar of the Gods. Yes, that certainly helps a lot. Let's move my Coke. I'm worried I'm gonna knock it over. I always set my drink somewhere that if I do knock it over, it won't, you know, get dumped on anything expensive and or difficult to clean. But I still don't want to do that. Okay, so now that I've fixed that line, like this needs to come out more. And then these other angles are going to be very different. Let's figure out these bottom angles. So this vanishing point is kind of way over here. So I'm going to put a little X there. It's such a very different angle than what I had. I think ultimately what I drew was more appropriate for a horizon line that's further down. So if I really want it to be closer to how I drew it, I have to move the horizon line down, which we could do, but then I think this whole house has to move down. I don't know if I necessarily want to do that. So I'm just going to continue with this adjustment process and see how I feel about it when it's... I don't know. It's tricky. Oh. Snowy said, I like that the Oasis has its own music, which is one of the nicest tracks in the game. Yeah. Six Seven said, I struggled with the King's Quest V Desert 2. That custard pie was so delicious. John said, I copied my King's Quest V off a campus computer using floppies. Got a virus I had to clean off too. It was a good slow distraction for the college year until I fell foul to the copy protection that I didn't have the codes for. Oh, it's rough. Salt said Diablo 1 is my favorite out of the series. It was a nice survival horror feel to it that was lost in the sequels. Yeah. So I think my first time in King's Quest V didn't make a drawn map, as I cannot draw, but I did basically map out the north, east, west, south directions. Yeah, like I don't think you need to draw, like you just need to map out the boxes and label them with what's in them and stuff. I think that was all the expectation that they really had of players back then. Definitely did that for my first playthrough of Quest for Glory 2 because the map that came in the box was useless. Oh no, interesting. So I'm debating here because, like, if we change this perspective to match where I put the horizon line and everything, then that kind of brings this out more and runs into this signpost here, and I don't know if I want to do that. I think what I might do is not worry about the perspective on this drawing. Well, this is tough. In retrospect, I maybe should have just thought of this up front instead of freehanding it. But I want to put this back where it was for now. Let's think about, so if I want things to look how they are, where does the horizon line need to be? So it needs to be down a bit more. Not a lot, but like down here more. That might be doable. I wouldn't have to change the house too much. Especially since it's down on lower ground, I think. I think that helps. So let's see. Our new vanishing point is going to be here. And that gives me an angle that's pretty close to what I drew. Still slightly different. And then let's see, we'll keep this vanishing point here, I think. So this is still going to end up a little bit different. Wait, what did I just do? What a mess. I definitely should have thought about this sooner. Oh wait, no. We can't keep this vanishing point here. It at least needs to be down. Okay. And we could also bring it in more to, again, get the angles more close to what I've drawn. And just at least see how that looks. Okay. So let's see. If I want this angle to be similar, then vanishing point is around here. I think we can get away with that. Okay, I think this is gonna work out better. Okay. It'll be easier to clean this up on a new sheet of paper, so I'm not worrying about getting it perfect. I'm just trying to adjust it overall to be closer to accurate. All right, I think that's decent. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this line. Okay, so I feel better about the perspective of that. And we have a new horizon line now, so I should erase that line. I was already kind of figuring, you know, we're not going to see the horizon, like it's going to fade to our sky color sooner. But regardless, we need to keep track of where the line is. And then the house. So the whole reason I wanted to figure this out better was to get a better idea of the perspective on the house. That sign was not too far off. I really like the light walking swagger. Thank you. I think it's a bit closer to what I was going for now. I'm really curious how it's gonna turn out when I put all the details back in, but we're getting there. The main character just figured out an item puzzle. Of course they have the swagger. Good point, yes. Okay. I am wondering, now that I look at this again, like, which way, like in our last sketch, she's kind of looking off in this direction. Like her head's tilted to the right a little bit. She's facing that way. I was thinking about, like, in terms of the composition, what is the most interesting way to point her head and her eyes. I'll figure that out. Silver asks, so important question. Once the lines and design is done, are you going to paint it? Yes, that is the plan. Like, I'm spending all this time to work out all the details because when I get to the painting phase, I want to know exactly what I'm doing up front. You know, obviously we have a little bit of freedom there to tweak things as we go, but especially because I don't have a lot of experience with painting. You know, I don't want to have to spend a lot of time fixing things up. I don't know how well the painting will turn out, but I figure I'll do as much planning as I can to give myself a good shot at it. My thought is if the first one isn't what I wanted, I'll certainly take at least a second try at it. I would really, really love to have an actual physical painting that is close to what I want. But if I struggle with it too much, I'm not opposed to, we could potentially either take that and tweak it digitally, or, I could just start over and do the whole thing digitally if I feel like that's the best way to get the result I want. But yeah, I just want to at least take a shot at using traditional methods here. And I think that if I plan things out well enough and paint it big enough, my odds are decent. The nice thing about painting big is if you fuck up when it's shrunk down, it's not as obvious. Everything gets smaller. I will probably want to paint it definitely at least this big, but maybe a little bigger. There are ways, I was actually thinking about this the other day, like there are ways you can scale things up, like with a projector, and I have done that before, but I think for sake of time and tools available to me readily, I will probably scale it up digitally if I need to do that. I'm not worried about bending the rules just to make something a little easier, especially if there's, a realistic way to have done it back in 1986. Silver said, I was also going to ask if you looked at custom 3D pin sites for tokens, but we also spent like 5 hours yesterday streaming, so I'm not clear you would have had time yet. I looked at the link you sent. I don't know if you saw on Discord, but I did buy on eBay the exact token that I used as reference. Just because I had mentioned on stream at some point that I was considering buying a token like that for myself, but I didn't really ever look at the pricing for such a thing. And then I looked it up, and that exact token was only $5 with free shipping. So I was like, well, of course I have to buy this. I'm trying to find the image here. Where is that? Transfer point reference token. Is this it? Yeah, there's the one. Yeah, so this one here. This is like actually from the same auction. And the auction note was interesting. Apparently this 2.5 cents is particularly rare as far as these tokens go. They said that all the other ones they've come across are, I think, 12.5 cents or something like that. But it's such a neat design. I had to get that. Oops, I risk it. I also found another neat auction that I shared on Discord that was like a lot of like 28 different tokens. They all had some sort of cutout. There was maybe one or two that didn't have a cutout. A lot of them were like cut out in the shape of like the letter of the city, whose transportation system that they were for or whatever. But it was neat to just see all those different transit tokens. There are half-cent coins? I can't think if I've ever seen one. It seems so weird, but yeah, like... I mean, I'm kind of familiar with the concept of things costing something and a half cent. I feel like gas prices often used to be fractional cents. So like, you would never pay a half cent, like it would just get rounded. But like, if you're buying 2 of these tokens, you'd pay 5 cents. So that makes like a lot of sense for like a transfer token, right? Because the whole route would be more than just the transfer token. Connor said, I have a few in my collection, but my parents currently have them. Neat. Silver says, apparently only existed from 1797 until 1857. Interesting. Okay. It's past 8 now, but I can tell Unsecret Crush is still busy chatting, so we'll keep going. Or at least 1857 was the last time they were minted. Right. Okay. House. So with our house, in terms of perspective, if we want the front of our house to be parallel to the side of the bus stop, then we would have the same vanishing point. I'm not saying we want that. I'm just saying, like, if we want things to look correct, and that is like how these two things are oriented compared to each other, that is what we would do. So if we move this vanishing point to the right, in terms of the front of the house, that means the front of the house is kind of being turned so that the right side of the house is more towards us. Whereas if we move the vanishing point over to the left, we're kind of tilting the house away from us. I think we might want it to be kind of tilted away from us more, a little bit. Let's kind of see how these lines I made work out. Yeah, so like these lines come, well, I guess, excuse me, unsurprisingly, they go to very different spots on the horizon line. But I guess I like the angle of the top part of the house, so let's kind of work out where those go to. Let's redo my horizon line here. Okay, whoops, I drew on the drawing board. That's fine. Okay, so what would this line look like if it did go over there? The other thing is, if the house is lower, got distracted by a message on Discord. Oh, Dronan, need to go shower and things. Thank you for the good company. You're welcome. Thank you for hanging out. Always great to have you here. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm trying to think of, if the house is lower down, how does that affect things? The lines would all converge on the same horizon line. I think the main thing we want to think about is like, so our horizon line is like chest level now. So that's like where our eye level is. Oh, I think Unsecret Crush might be done now. So if this house is lower down, like, let's say it's, I don't know, a few feet below. So then, like, let's see, a story of a house is what, like, maybe 10 feet. So like the top of this is gonna be I feel like where we got it is probably all right, but maybe the bottom of the house should come down a bit more. Now we can also kind of push this back more and make it smaller if that feels appropriate. That just means we bring the top down more and kind of shrink everything as a whole. If the house is sinking, it probably needs foundation repair. Well, it's at the bottom of a hill. I am about to start making food. Okay, thank you. I will wrap things up by 8:30. It's so boring to think about perspective. And yet, I do recognize that it is important. So yeah, I'm just gonna... Wait, what are these lines? I'm gonna bring this down somewhat. I think to about here. We'll keep the top of the house roughly where it is, I think. And then these lines will come to a vanishing point that's in here somewhere. I think that's all reasonable, and I don't think I'm doing anything that's incorrect. And or going to look weird. Ultimately, that's the concern, right? We don't want it to look weird. So that was where I was drawing to. I guess over here more. Okay, so let's say about there. Let's work out the rest of these lines. This is going to result in more dramatic angles here, which it might end up being too dramatic, which means we can always move the vanishing point out more. But since this is a totally normal house, maybe being a little dramatic is gonna emphasize how completely normal and not unusual at all it is. Will a shadowy figure be visible from an attic window? You do make a very good argument. I'm writing a little note. We'll definitely consider that. It will be very subtle, but honestly, that would just make it even better. Okay, I got too many lines going on here, but we're getting there. I think that's starting to look pretty good. Clean up some more of these lines. see, what did the... Okay, yeah, we got kind of like a arc shape here. Let's see. You just have a little guy that's waving up here. Or maybe he's got his hand pressed against the window. I guess that's up to interpretation. There we go. Oh, sorry. Wrong camera. There's our little guy in the attic. Totally normal guy. Alright, and then these bushes will move down a little bit basically, but not too far off from what we drew before. I think the tree can pretty much stay where it is. I don't super like the top of this hill is like kind of touching the horizon line here, but like I said, we won't actually see the horizon line. So that's not too much of a concern. However, I do think I'm going to adjust it a little. So let's just bring it up a tiny bit so it's not... touching in this awkward way. Hello, Green Castle Block. That's Brisket, all right. Erase some of our old lines here that no longer make sense, so I don't get confused. All right. I'm trying to think. I don't have much longer. I could just wrap up. I'm a little tempted to. I think we'll put a tiny more detail in here. So this is still my favorite drawing of Cameron overall. And I think I'm gonna go back to making the jacket look more like this, although like this arm of the jacket looks great here. Let's just start to get some of these details back in. I need to figure out how to get this collar looking correct. I keep struggling with that. I feel like the lines I keep drawing here for like the seam at the shoulder. I don't know, something's off with the way I keep drawing that. It's another thing that would be easier to figure out with a reference that actually has the correct clothing I'm trying to draw. Same with the collar. And the way the jacket hangs. All right, I think we'll probably stop there for today. Pretty good progress. Let's see, let's compare with our last drawing. So that's what we had before. We didn't quite finish the whole scene here, but we flopped around the bus stop and worked out more of the details in the background. It's still at a point where I can't quite picture what this looks like when it's finished, but I think the layout of things is pretty close to what I want. I think I maybe made Brisket a little bit too close. So we might want to move them over to the right. Just like the distance here feels a little like weird. Don't know how to explain it other than that. I do like we've got lots of space around the bus stop, which I think will work out well when it's like in color and has the shading we want. One thing I was thinking about is I think it would help me figure out the lighting and shadows if I do a version that's like, I don't know, maybe I just take like a Sharpie or something and fill in all the shadows, like just like strict black and white only. I feel like that might just help me kind of visualize things a little bit better. But there, I want like this to be like kind of well lit, and then like the ground especially should get a lot darker away from the bus stop. So like, you know, it kind of looks like, you know, the bus stop is kind of highlighted in the distance somewhat. And then there'll be heavy shadows on the left side of the drawing here. And pretty dark in the ground on the foreground, I think. And we'll have that nice... I still don't know exactly what's going to work best with the sky. Like, could be like a dark purple. It could be something that gets a little bit brighter, either on the horizon line or maybe at the top. I'm still considering the possibility that maybe it is just complete black, like we have it in the described in the game. But we'll see. Brisket is just large, yeah. But I think we're getting there. So I won't be streaming this Friday. I will be back on Tuesday, of course, for Maupiti Island. But we're going to see Them Might Be Giants on Friday, so that will interfere with my normal stream schedule. I will be back on Silver's channel, of course, on Saturday for our final Lamplight City stream, which should be interesting. Like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna play through at least some of the game, and make very different choices. We got, I was kind of surprised and a little bit impressed that we got the perfect run trophy on our first try through. I kind of thought we would screw at least some things up, but we solved every case perfectly. So this time we're talking about screwing everything up as much as we can, and then also we're going to check out some of the director's commentary, which should be pretty interesting. Thank you all. Oh, food's ready. Perfect. We just got to find someone to raid real quick, and then I can go eat. Let's see. It's fun to stream on Sundays because we get to raid people we don't usually get to raid. Oh, okay. We don't get to raid Tawe very much, and quite appropriately, she is wandering around the desert in Quest for Glory too. So that's a very easy decision. Okay. If you haven't been over to Tawe's channel before, she plays a lot of adventure games. And all kinds of fun stuff that overlap a lot with things I enjoy. So I'm sure you'll have a nice time over there. She's also a great person. So I hope y'all will come along, but if not, no worries. Y'all have a nice week. We'll see you around. Please take care of yourselves. Oh, I keep forgetting. Raid messages if you would like to join the Robot Parade, of course. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you. Bye.